You're listening to the Elvis Ultimate Fan Channel podcast, the channel that is devoted 100% to the life and career of the biggest selling recording artist of all time, with your host, Steve Francis.
Hi everyone, welcome once again to Elvis the Ultimate Fan Channel. I hope everybody is well. Coming up today, we will be discussing Sam Phillips and what he really thought of Elvis's recordings. The spelling of Elvis's middle name. And of course, this day in Elvis history. So I do hope everybody is nice and relaxed and well. Let's see now. Hi, Lou Dane. Mary Patricia. Hello, Mary Patricia. Good to see you on here again. Hi, Chris. Jessie 22. Hi, Vincenzo. Dave, Arkansas Dave is my moderator tonight. He will be making sure that everybody behaves themselves. Lee, Alfred, Karen. Just waiting for a few more to come online. Marcia says, Happy Wednesday, Steve. Thank you. There's Karen as well. Jill says it's hot, hot, hot. So yes, I thought it was appropriate to be in here today, seeing as we are discussing, or I will be discussing, Sam Phillips. And it's just something that I was thinking about the last couple of days, because let's face it, without Sam and without Marion Keisker, there probably would have been no Elvis Presley. So, you know, Sam and Marion really set him up and on his way. Angel Baby, hi Angel Baby. Mr. Shovelhead. That's a new name I haven't seen before. Don't forget, Mr. Shovelhead, if you haven't already, you need to, where is it? Here it is. Click the subscribe button, click the bell, turn it black by selecting all, and then also if you can like this video as well, it'll be really good. Up above me is my Twitter, Facebook feed. If you want to join me on Twitter and Facebook as well, I'd be most delighted. And you can also send me emails with questions, anything you like really, to elvistheultimatefan@gmail.com. In fact, the ticker is just moving along the bottom of the screen now. So I'd love to hear from you. Did somebody say that Danny B-Side was in the building? I must admit I missed his name, but people are saying hi, Danny B-Side. Chris is saying hi, Mr. Shovelhead. That's a great. That is actually a very, very good profile name, Mr. Shovelhead. Son of Wisdom. There's quite a few new names coming up tonight, which I am very, very, very happy to see. I mean, I'd love to see everybody's name. It's the same names week after week because it's great because we're like one wee family here. But I also love to see new names coming up as well. And make sure that you subscribe, click the bell and all that. And also share these videos, share this channel. And that's the main thing, because what we're trying to do here is we're trying to keep Elvis's memory and legacy alive. So, Sam Phillips. As most of us will know, Sam Phillips was the owner of Sun Records in Memphis. That launched Elvis's career in 1954 when he released his first record, That's All Right Mama. Then at the end of 1955, he sold Elvis's contract to RCA. There's Priscilla. Hello, Priscilla. That caught my eye. Hi, Michael. So I thought I'd share some of Sam's feelings about Elvis when he first started recording for RCA. Sam did a excuse me. Sam did a Rolling Stone interview in March 1986, and Sam said when he first heard Elvis' recording of Heartbreak Hotel, he was convinced that RCA was going to destroy Elvis's career. Now imagine that, thinking that Heartbreak Hotel was going to ruin Elvis's career. He called the song a morbid mess and a depressing dirge. He said that was the worst record I ever heard. And Steve Scholes of RCA called Sam at the time and asked him, did we buy the wrong guy? Now, what do you think of that? Steve Scholes thinking that maybe RCA had signed the wrong guy and they think they should have signed Carl Perkins instead. Sam told him, you haven't bought the wrong person, and gave him the reasons why. He said, number one, Elvis certainly has talent. He was right about that, wasn't he? And unlike Carl Perkins, Sam was hoping would replace Elvis' son. He was single, had no children, and was a heck of a good-looking guy. Again, completely accurate and completely honest. Sam continued, when I heard Heartbreak Hotel, I said, damn RCA are going to mess this man up. And then he heard Don't Be Cruel, and he was the happiest man in the world. So, obviously, he wasn't a big fan of Heartbreak Hotel. Of course, everybody gets things wrong, but it's quite interesting to think that, he thought that one song, Heartbreak Hotel, was just going to completely and utterly undo all the work that Sam had put in at Sun. Sam said his favorite record by Elvis was, this is up to this time, of course, Mystery Train. And when he did the release take, he laughed because he thought it wasn't worth a damn. We've all listened to Mystery Train and we can hear Elvis kind of do that whoop at the end and then the little giggle. And Sam says that was the one with the laugh at the ending. He just knew I wasn't going to be pleased with that cut. So he just acted silly and it turned out to be super in the end. So sometimes when you think a take isn't going to be any good, it turns out to be the one that you use. Did you give Elvis any advice when he left Sun? This was a question that Sam was asked. The one real ammunition I gave him was, don't let them tell you what to do, don't lose your individuality. That was the one piece of advice that Sam gave Elvis. Sam was also asked, did he realize how much Elvis was worth? No, I didn't have any idea the man was going to be the biggest thing that ever happened in the industry. Wow. And of course, as we all know, Sam took $35,000, plus he also asked for another $5,000 so that he could pay Elvis back royalties. So it was $40,000 in total. So Sam did okay. He did okay. Actually, Sam went on to sign other artists. He also put money into what was then a new venture, which was the Holiday Inn chain. So he used some of that money to start the Holiday Inn chain. Don't know whether people knew that, but yeah, Sam was responsible for starting up the Holiday Inn chains. He was also asked if he was ever sorry that he let Elvis go. And again, Sam says, no, that was the best judgment call I could make at the time. I'm pretty sure that maybe Sam realized that he could get the backing and the publicity and the know-how to help him grow better with RCA than he could with Sun. Sam probably felt that he just couldn't give it the time or the effort to, because he could see that Elvis was probably starting off his sort of stratospheric climb to superstardom, although that would really contradict what he said about he never realized that Elvis was going to be the biggest thing that ever happened in the industry. But I'm sure he felt that maybe RCA could handle Elvis's affairs and career better than maybe Sun could. So he says that was the best judgment call he could do at the time. Sun went on and did many, many things. I hoped that one thing that wouldn't happen to me was that I would be a one artist or one hit wonder. Well, we know that wasn't the case because, of course, Jerry Lee, Johnny Cash, a few others were benefited from Sam's guidance and his record label. Sam was looking for a singer who sounded like a black singer. Michael says Mystery Train was one of my favorites. Yes. Also, Marcia says that Sam needed the money. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he needed the money to keep Sun going. And as I say, he did put some of the 35,000 into the Holiday Inn franchise. Sam once said that Elvis died of a broken heart. This is a strange kind of thing to say, but this was his thoughts on it. When you really don't have something to look forward to with a good, sweet, beautiful attitude, you're in trouble. I don't care who you are also in trouble if you're in bondage of any way. I'm talking about emotional entrapment. Now that's deep stuff, and it's serious stuff, he says. And no matter what happens to you in the world, if you don't make it your business to be happy, then you may have gained the whole world and lost your spirit, and maybe even your soul. So what that sounds like to me is, it sounds like maybe Sam thought that Elvis became disillusioned with his fame and his fortune. Of course, losing his mother didn't help. It's such a key time when he was going in the army and he was going to be away from his fans and some of his family and so forth. Of course, Dodger went with him and Vernon went with him and some of his friends went with him, but I'm sure he was still fairly lonely in Germany at that time. So, and a failed marriage as well, a divorce probably didn't help. Asked what Elvis should have done differently, Sam replied, He should have been more hard-headed like me, and said, I will break your damn neck, I don't care, you can't scare me. Monetary factors can't scare me, starvation can't scare me, threats can't scare me. Sam continued, he said, I mean, you have to have that attitude. Elvis also knew that success wasn't enough. It's like Mac Davis said, I think this is one of the greatest quotes that Mac said, stop and smell the roses. So, what does everybody think about those things that Sam has said? Let me just recap about some of the things that Sam said. He said that he thought, when he heard Heartbreak Hotel, he thought that RCA were going to mess up Elvis's career. He gave him advice when he left Sun. Don't tell them what to do. Don't let them tell you what to do. Don't lose your individuality. Also, even Sam admits that he didn't realize just how successful Elvis was going to be, what he became, how successful he became. Sam said he wasn't sorry. He didn't regret letting him go. I suppose with hindsight, maybe Sam could have done something differently. But then again, Sam and Sun probably never were going to be in a position to be able to handle Elvis's career the same way that RCA did and Colonel Parker. What do you think about him saying that Elvis died of a broken heart? Do you think that that's one of the things that led to Elvis's demise? And what do you think Elvis should have done differently? Sam gave his opinion on what he thought he should have done differently. Elvis should have been more headstrong. He should have thought about number one a little bit more. That's what he really says. And he says that he shouldn't have been frightened to stand up to people. Michael says, very interesting. Thanks, Michael. Yeah, he did actually, Chris. Elvis spent almost all his life thinking, why me? Why was I chosen to have this massive success? John says he should have fired the colonel. Elvis definitely changed after Gladys died. I always say that the death of a parent always will change you. It will change everybody. You'll never ever quite be the same again once your parents are no longer around. Marcia thinks that he didn't die of a broken heart. He was too smart for his heart to rule his mind. Elvis should have lived cleaner. Yeah, I forgot to remember to forget Alfred was a great song. Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite Sun recordings. Along with Tomorrow Night. Tomorrow Night is another one. Trying to Get to You. Mystery Train, of course. Good Rocking Tonight. It would be quicker to say the ones that I didn't like. And there's not many of them. In fact, I'll Never Let You Go, Little Darling. That's not a favorite of mine from the Sun era. Yeah, well, that's quite correct, Vincent. So I don't think you ever stop missing somebody. Yeah, you could definitely see the change in Elvis after his mother passed away. It's hard to say how much of that was his, Gladys dying, and how much of that was the army. Now, I discussed the army draft and the effect it had on his career in the last show on Sunday. If you missed that, please go and have a look at it. John says that he doesn't think that Elvis died of a broken heart. There's not many people agreeing with Sam on that particular point. It's quite interesting what Sam said about Heartbreak Hotel. And this morning I was actually watching Elvis Lass. Hello, Lisa. Yes, long time no see. Glad you've joined us. It's quite interesting what Sam said about Heartbreak Hotel. I was watching Elvis Lass's channel this morning, Michelle, and she covered the B-side of Heartbreak Hotel, I Was the One, and she says she's going to cover Heartbreak Hotel tomorrow. So that'll be quite interesting to watch that. So don't forget to check out Elvis Lass's channel on that. Now, I'm sure Michelle won't say that Heartbreak Hotel was, what did he say? A morbid mess and a depressing dirge. We all know now that it's not a morbid mess, and it's not depressing. I mean, yes, it is definitely a dark topic, but it's also such a powerful emotional record. You know, I think probably Sam was hoping that he would sing, and his first single would be an upbeat, kind of a happy sort of tune. And for him to release Heartbreak Hotel, the very, very first release that he had with such a major label, was maybe a little bit of a culture shock to Sam. It would have been interesting to ask Sam what he thought of Heartbreak Hotel. Well, I'm sure come 1986, his view was probably the same. I'm wondering whether his view in 1986 was the same as 1956, because even though the interview was in 1986, he could have been talking about how he felt in 56. It would have been interesting for the interviewer to say, well, do you still feel the same way about Heartbreak Hotel as you did 30 years ago? I was always surprised how much Elvis loved ballads because he was really into fast rockabilly singer. That's another thing that actually Sam said in the interview. He said even though we recorded ballads with Elvis, there was no way his first song released on the Sun label was going to be a ballad. Even though they sort of tried ballads, the first thing they tried was a ballad, wasn't it? I Love You Because. And they also tried Harbour Lights, things like that. And I think Sam realized that he wasn't going to make it singing ballads in 1954. His voice changed later, the market changed later, but in 1954, ballads was definitely not the answer for Elvis Presley. That's for sure. That's why when they were fooling around and they did That's All Right, Sam's ears pricked up. And then that's why they followed it up with Blue Moon of Kentucky. Elvis was born to sing gospel. Elvis was born to sing, full stop. But I know what you're saying, Michelle. I really know what you're saying. You have hit the nail on the head there with saying he was born to sing gospel. But he was also born to sing, without a doubt. Jessie Phillips, no relation to Sam, was a Memphis radio DJ who brought the song Justice, non-stop playtime. Yeah. I think he played it. He played it non-stop that first night. I wanted to also revisit the topic that we discussed last Wednesday, a week ago today, which is Elvis's twin brother, Jessie Garron, because since I did that broadcast, there's a few people that have left comments on the video, which I think I just felt like I wanted to share with you. There's Film Frankfurt. That's a new name as well. Hi, Film Frankfurt. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and click the bell. Turn it black for all, not personalized, if you haven't already. A couple of people have commented and made me think and rethink some of the things that I said. One of the things that we addressed last week about Jessie Garron was that where the story had come from, that somebody had said that he thought that Jessie was buried in a shoebox. And I said, well, I know Gladys and Vernon, money was tight, but I still don't think they would have put Jessie in a shoebox in Priceville Cemetery, even if it was just a very sort of rudimentary and crude casket. It would have been a wooden box. And somebody actually said, and this made me think, and this makes perfect sense as well. Somebody commented, I can't see how a baby would fit into a shoebox. Even a small baby would be too large for a shoebox. And somebody else has put a cheap one, but still a coffin. In other words, they would have maybe knocked something up with wood over the 24, 48 hours before they laid poor little Jessie Garron to rest. So I'm not 100% sure why that myth, rumor, whatever you want to call it, persists till today, that he was buried in a shoebox. Somebody else commented, I'm sure he was not put in a shoebox. The men in that family probably would have made a small wooden box. This person says just a guess, but yeah. It's been an ongoing story for so many years with regards to poor little Jessie. I think if he had not been stillborn, it would have surely changed the course of Elvis's life. 100%. I agree with that person. There's no way that Elvis's life could have remained exactly the same as what it was, that we know, between 1956 and 1977, if he'd had a living sibling. He did have a small baby's coffin, according to the cemetery guy. There you go. I still don't understand then why this myth still persists and people say shoebox. I wish people had stopped saying shoebox. Hi, Vicky. There was a flood and records were lost. this is another reason why maybe we are now having difficulty, or whoever is trying to locate Jessie's final resting place, why it's being difficult. Someone even commented that there was a tornado that hit Tupelo and knocked a lot of stuff around and so forth, and caused devastation and kind of changed the the terrain, I suppose you could call it. And that's another reason why Vernon couldn't locate it later. I've even made a note here. Unlikely that Vernon could remember the location, and Elvis probably never knew. He never knew to forget where Jessie was. I mean, I'm sure he would have been taken in the early days when he was just a toddler, but toddlers aren't going to remember things like that. Yeah, very, very good point. Vernon built the shack in Tupelo. I'm sure he could have managed a small coffin. That's another thing I was thinking. I'm pretty sure he would have built something over a day or two. Not a nice thing to have to do. Build a coffin for your own infant baby. Hi, Cat Girl Blue. When you can't afford a proper coffin, use a pine box coffin. Yeah. Right. Something else here as well. I also said last week that it was claimed that Elvis's stillborn twin, Jessie, was buried next to Noah, his uncle Noah. Now, something that I didn't think of last week was Uncle Noah passed away in 1969. There on the screen at the moment is August 29th, 1890, September the 13th, 1969. Right. My point being, and also the other person commented in the comment section of the video, I don't think Uncle Noah's grave is a reliable marker as to the location of Jessie's grave. If he had predeceased Jessie, then yes, but not after, let alone 34 years after. So obviously in 1935, they couldn't possibly have, as somebody is claiming, put Jessie Garron beside Uncle Noah, because Uncle Noah wasn't even there until 1969. So again, it's not that somebody laid Jessie next to Uncle Noah. It's the other way round that they're claiming. Uncle Noah. But if there was no marker or it was unmarked, how did they know where to put Noah next to Jessie? So again, there's inconsistencies. Then we move on to comments that I said last week that people claimed that there were two more brothers. And somebody said, whoever said that must have been high as a kite. I think they were saying that they were Clayton and that Jessie didn't die. So Elvis was a triplet. There was Elvis, Jessie, and Clayton. And somebody made a very, very good comment here. I'm going to read the comment in full. It says, what do they think Gladys and Vernon did? Did they hide away Jessie and Clayton for 20 years? Because, oh yes, when Elvis was a newborn infant in his mother's arms, somehow they knew that, wait a minute, 20 years from now there will be the birth of something called rock and roll. Elvis will be famous, a singer, and he will be part of it. And maybe 30 years from now, he'll have medical problems, so he'll need someone to fill in for him. So we better keep these two babies hidden. Just, that comment from that person on my video about Elvis and Jessie just highlights just how absurd hiding Jessie and Clayton away for 20 years, and then 30 years later using Jessie and Clayton as backup for Elvis. None of this would have been known in 1935. As far as they was concerned, Elvis, the living twin, was just going to live out a humdrum normal life as an electrician or a truck driver. They couldn't have possibly known in 1935 that he was going to be the biggest entertainer in the world. Somebody else says people have been spreading rumors about Elvis his entire life, and especially all these years he's been gone. It's got worse since 1977. I wish people would just stop this. It's beyond ridiculous now. That's what the person says. I haven't heard of Jerry Presley, no. Angel Baby says she agrees with me. Everybody is saying shoebox, and it was not a shoebox. Yep. And Jill says shakes head in disbelief. Yeah, I know. Unless these people had a time machine in 1935 that could hop ahead and see what was in front of Elvis and what was going to happen to Elvis from 1954 stroke 1955 onwards, how could they possibly know? How could Vernon and Gladys possibly know that they needed to lie about Jessie being stillborn and also another baby being born on the same night called Clayton? And then there was also another one, Franklin, apparently, that was born in the 1940s. People say all kinds of things. They do. Right. The other thing I wanted to address, and somebody asked me this question. I think they emailed me or they sent me a private message or something. I know a lot of people are going to know the answer to this, but for everybody that knows the answer, there might be somebody that doesn't know the answer to this. So I wanted to just address it for the person that asked me, and I told them I would address it tonight. It's the spelling. It's the confusion over the spelling of Elvis's middle name, single A and double A. Now we've been here many times, and this is the story, and this is how it happened. In 1966, Elvis and the guys were sitting around talking, and Marty Lacker asked Elvis why his middle name was spelt with only one A and not two A's, as it was in the Bible. Obviously, everybody knows, and obviously Marty knew as well, how religious Elvis was. The physician who delivered him wrote Elvis Aaron Presley with two A's in his ledger. And I actually showed that ledger on last Wednesday, and it's clearly got two A's. The name was chosen after the Presley's friend and fellow congregation member, Aaron Kennedy, with two A's. Though a single A spelling was probably intended by Gladys and Vernon to parallel the middle name of Elvis's stillborn brother, Jessie Garin. So, in other words, it was just Aaron with a G in front of it. It reads Aaron, single A, on most official documents produced during his lifetime, including his high school diploma, RCA record contract. We've all seen that signature, especially on the front of the silver box set, and it's in gold, and Elvis has signed it with a single A. That was in 1955, tail end of 1955. His marriage license, and this was generally taken to be the proper spelling. After Marty asked the question about the spelling, Elvis expressed the desire to his father, who was there, that the more traditional biblical rendering, double A, Aaron, to be used henceforth, especially on legal documents. 5 years later, the JC's citation honouring him as one of the country's outstanding young men used Aaron, double A. Late in his life, he sought to officially change the spelling to double A and discovered that state records already listed it that way. Knowing his wishes, his father chose for Elvis's grave to have the double A, and it is the spelling that his estate has designated as official. Now, we all know one of the reasons why I'm addressing this, and this is because, again, you have some people who try and claim that because it says double A on his grave marking, his gravestone in the meditation garden at Graceland, is a sign that he's not dead, which, again, just doesn't add up. The reason why it's double A is because, number one, it's double A on his birth certificate, and number two, because of that conversation that Elvis had with his father in 1966. Double A. So what does everybody think about the double A and A? I personally like to see it with two A's. Ludane, you're very, very welcome. Also, I think that there was a comment made by Elvis as well that spelling wasn't one of the people in the South in the 1930s. Spelling wasn't a strong thing. You know, people had trouble spelling certain words and certain names and things like that. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's double A on his birth certificate, on his ledger, on the ledger that the doctor wrote at the time, Dr. Bond. I showed pictures last week, and it's double A. And I'm pretty sure that Vernon dictated it that morning, January the 8th. There's Elvis Lass. Elvis Lass, I gave you a shout out because we were discussing what Sam thought of Heartbreak Hotel, and you featured I Was the One this morning, and you're going to do Heartbreak Hotel tomorrow, so that'll be interesting. And I said, I don't think you are going to call Heartbreak Hotel what Sam called it. Sam called it a morbid mess and a depressing dirge. So there you go. I agree, LS. You're saying it's not worth giving this stuff the time of day, but it is, because we have to. I feel it's almost needed for me to just point out why these things that some people say about Elvis are just blatantly nonsense, and I'll point out why it's nonsense. Why the A and double A, and people saying that, you know, the double A on his grave is because he isn't dead. It's nonsense, and that's the reason why it's double A. Same with, saying he was a triplet and things like that. I mean, it has to be addressed. I brought that up in the vid, Steve. I didn't agree. Good. I'm glad. I look forward to watching your video tomorrow. Yeah, well, I mean, it can be spelled both ways, Jessie. It can be spelled with a double A and a single A. But, the evidence is there from day one. Thanks, Bernadette, for the super chat. Very, very kind. You should have asked me a question, though, because it makes it worth the donation then. Anybody sends me a super chat and with a question, I will... If I can answer it, I'll answer it straight away. They do say a lot of nonsense about Elvis, and they're going to continue to say a lot of nonsense about Elvis, unfortunately. And every so often, I feel that I must address the nonsense things that come out. It's almost like when somebody says something like he's not dead because it says double A on his gravestone. It's a disservice to Elvis. It's an insult, and it also insults his family, and it also insults us fans. So that's that. I've done Sam Phillips. I've done the Aaron with an A and Aaron with two A's. We've revisited Jessie as well. I just wanted to clear up a few things that I thought needed addressing, and I'm going to do this day in history, and then I want to tell you what's coming up on Sunday. So today's Yes, Vincenzo, on the 1980 box set, it says, no, actually, it's a single A. It's a single A on the silver box set. So this day in history, today is June the 16th, and I always like to share with you some of the things that Elvis was doing on this day in history. That's very kind of you. Thanks, Chris. Chris has just given me a super chat, as you can see, and she's thanked me for discussing his name. I think Chris was one of the ones that wasn't sure why there was an A and a double A, so I've kind of clarified it for her. This day in history, June the 16th, have to start with 1956. What a huge year for Elvis. Elvis went on a local TV dance party hosted by Wink Martindale. We've seen this, well, I've seen it many, many times, and I'm sure you have. He's kind of leaning his arm on the jukebox, isn't he? And he's talking to Wink to promote his charity show at Russwood Park in Memphis on July 4th. Elvis announced that the door prize will be his diamond initial ring. After that, Elvis visited a cafe near the Strand movie theatre on Main Street, where he posed for pictures with Robbie Moore, a young female fan. In 1958, Elvis began 10 weeks advanced tank training in the army, of course. 1960, on this day in 1960, production for GI Blues was continuing. In 1961, he was at home in Memphis, having a little bit of R&R, rest and relaxation, between Blue Hawaii and Follow That Dream. That's what he was doing in 1961. 1962, actually in 1962, June 16th, he was again in Memphis, and he was between GGG, Girls, 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 and It Happened at the World's Fair. I'm just going to take a little bit of a drink here. '64. Yeah, now he wasn't at home in 1964. He was in Radio Recorder's Studio B, and he was doing vocal overdubs for the movie Girl Happy. He did a vocal overdub for Wolf Call, and chorus vocal overdubs was also being done for Wolf Call. He was doing the vocal overdubs for Do the Clam, Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce, Starting Tonight, and I've Got to Find My Baby. That's what he was doing on June the 16th, 1964. 1965, he was in LA between Frankie and Johnny and heading to Hawaii to shoot Paradise Hawaiian Style. So he was kind of getting ready to go into Radio Recorders early August and do vocal overdubs for that, and then he was heading to Hawaii. 1966, he was in Memphis preparing to leave for Hollywood to shoot Double Trouble. And 1967, Elvis and Priscilla flew to Palm Springs to begin work on Speedway in 1967. 1968, he was working at the Burbank studios for the NBC TV special. On his way back to Memphis, Elvis made a stop in Vegas in 1969. In 1972, June the 16th, Elvis performed at the Chicago Stadium, Illinois. 20,000 fans were inside the arena. 1974, Elvis performed at the Tarrant County Convention Center, Fort Worth, Texas, at 3 and 8:30 p.m. Stephen Pedersen actually is on here, I believe, and he is from Fort Worth. 1975, Elvis was in hospital complaining of eye problems. 1976, at home between tours. And 1977, he was preparing to leave Graceland for his last ever tour that was to begin the next day in Springfield, Missouri. So that's this day in Elvis history, June the 16th, through the years. Let's have a look to see what people are saying. Aisha says she has all Elvis Presley's movies. Yeah, all 33 of them, huh? Michelle says, awesome about Chicago. I'm from the suburbs of Chicago. Yeah, he was there in 1972, on this day in 1972. Okay, right. So, I'm sure most people have had enough of me now. Although, that being said, they might have had enough of me. They definitely wouldn't have had enough about Elvis, because we can talk about Elvis forever, can't we? Vincenzo was watching Aloha today. Yeah, well, nothing better. Nothing better than watching Elvis and listening to Elvis. Karen says she has all the movies too. Don't forget, if you're watching this on replay, you can leave comments about the subjects that we've discussed tonight, because I read the comments, and then if I can and I get time, I reply to as many comments as I can. No problem, Michelle. There's another idea as well, which somebody came up with. It's like a ask Steve a question. You can email me at elvistheultimatefanchannel@gmail.com, and I will pick one question a week to answer. I'll answer it on Wednesday, and I'll answer it on Sunday. So if there's a particular thing you want to ask me, and I don't see all the comments, so I might miss the question in the comments while I'm doing this live feed, you can send it to me at elvistheultimatefanchannel@gmail.com. I will pick one question, and I will answer it on Wednesdays and Sundays. I've very, very, very much enjoyed being here tonight and reading all your comments. I hope you can join me on Sunday when the questions will be on the quiz will be connections. We'll also be doing another Elvis topic. Elvis Song of the Week. I picked my Elvis Song of the Week. And of course, I'll be doing another This Day in Elvis History. And don't forget, if you want to support this channel, you can buy me a coffee with a link below.